The next panelist is Bill Mckibben, and Bill is the co-founder, founder, and the director of 350.org, also a global organization. And you even served as an ambassador for Worldwide Views while we were developing the whole project. So, Bill, the floor is yours.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here, and what a pleasure to get these results. I want to make 3 points. One, I don't find it surprising at all that ordinary citizens were capable of dealing with the complicated science of global warming. We spent the last 18 months running this 350.org campaign. We ran an entire campaign based on a kind of obscure scientific data point. There wasn't a rock star or a movie star in the room in the whole process, and yet on October 24th, we had what CNN called the most widespread day of political action in the planet's history, 5,200 demonstrations in 181 countries, all of it rallying around a number. People can cope with this stuff. Ordinary people can cope with it for reasons I'll explain in a minute much more easily than leaders can cope with science, okay? Second thing, I'm not surprised at how radical people's solutions were, people's statements were. I think that they were more radical even than the people at Worldwide Views would have expected. And you can tell that by looking at things like the data on emissions targets, okay? When people were asked the question, the only number they were even given was the 2-degree target that NGOs and things have been talking about for the last 4 or 5 years, and that science now knows are outmoded and too high. People weren't even given the kind of targets that the AOSIS countries and the LDC countries are talking about now, 1.5 degrees. And yet, people came to those solutions entirely on themselves. They said, the news here is not that 88% of people believe in a 2-degree target. Pretty much everybody in this hall does. The news is that 53% of people think that we should keep the temperature no more than the current 0.8 of a degree that it's already risen, and that a good many want to bring that down. That sounds radical when you say it on its face, but in fact it's entirely sensible. 0.8 of a degree has been enough to melt the Arctic. Why would anybody want to find out what 2 degrees does, you know? This is complete breakthrough of kind of rational thinking into a process that hasn't been marked by much rational thinking really going forward. Third thing, the reason I think that there's this disconnect isn't because of what was in the room when these things were going on, this sort of information that people were being presented with. It was what wasn't in the room, which is the heavy hand of vested interest that hangs over this process, that causes government after government to take targets that scientists don't think are true. Think how far away we are. My country, the United States, Barack Obama will appear here in a week and offer a target that amounts to a 4% cut from 1990 emissions for the United States. Anybody, as we can now tell, given the facts of the situation, know that 40% is the minimum of where we need to go. We're offering 1/10 of that, an order of magnitude below. It doesn't have anything to do with Barack Obama or anybody else having some bigger understanding of the science than people. They don't. It has to do with the fact that ExxonMobil made more money in last year than any company in the history of money, you know, and that allows them to buy a lot of influence in this process that they don't deserve. So it's an incredibly good model. The question is, how do we take this kind of model about real information and not keep repeating it with people around the world, because I'm confident we'd get the same result no matter where we went. The question is, how do we take this model and bring it to work in the plenary session down the hall where we're getting terrible answers out instead of the kind of answers that science and that people demand. So thank you for this work.
Thanks very much.
Yes, hi Bill, and hi Lars. Kimbria from Sea Change Radio, and I just wanted to congratulate the Danish board for putting this project together. We've been following you for a year now, and you're doing a terrific job. And I wanted to ask Bill, you were mentioning that what we need to do is to bring this now into the negotiation room. And yesterday, I think some members of 350 tried to do that in the plenary, and there was a big demonstration, which definitely got people's attention, but then the press was excluded from the rest of the plenary for the rest of the day. So I'm wondering how we can bring this into the plenaries in such a way that's going to, the conversation will remain open to everyone. I know demonstration has its place. How can we demonstrate what we're feeling and still be allowed into the room to have the discussion?
You know, I don't know how things will happen here at the COP. I think it's pretty important to remember that what goes on here is 1/10 of 1% of the work that needs to go on. The real political work is back home in everybody's countries, building a kind of strong movement. People just, you know, the negotiators who come here merely represent the views of their governments. The idea that their views are going to change very much in the course of these couple of weeks is wrong unless they get directions from back home to change something. That's why when we do our work, it's all dispersed out around the world. That's why we had demonstrations in 181 countries, including places where nobody's ever organized anything like this before. So it's really important for people to go meet, say, the two 20-something-year-old sisters from Ethiopia who got 15,000 people out in the streets of Addis Ababa, or my colleagues from the Maldives, some of whom are here today with us, who, you know, pretty much everybody there is now on fire on these issues, and therefore we're getting tremendous statements and initiatives from the AOSIS countries, from the Maldives, from Tuvalu, from places that care. Well, we can build that kind of momentum, and we're trying to build it all over the world, then we can make change. Here's not the place in a way for making change. This place just reflects what goes on elsewhere and how much work we've been able to do in the rest of the world. By the time we get here, it's basically, in a sense, too late. We're here harvesting what we've sown over the last couple of years. Clearly we haven't sown enough. We need to do a lot more so that we can finally get some kind of useful harvest at some point.
Thanks, Bill.